Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sallim taslima. Qala rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, today we're going to be speaking about how to prepare for your trip to Masjid Al-Aqsa. And the idea for this presentation came about because I have just returned, alhamdulillah, to the fazl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from having visited Masjid Al-Aqsa. I was there for 8 days, 4 days before Ramadan and 4 days off Ramadan. I went with my family. And having returned, some of my friends who are about to leave for Masjid Al-Aqsa asked me to report back. So that is what was the reason for this particular presentation. So what we're going to be discussing today, inshallah, very briefly, the blessed land of Al-Sham, just to give you the geographical context of Masjid Al-Aqsa. Then we'll talk about preparing for your trip, the places of interest to visit, those who are going to be sitting in itikaf, whether sunnat or nafil itikaf, so how they should prepare for it. We'll also discuss hotels, food, shopping, culture, a little about the people of Palestine, and we'll conclude with what we can do for the Palestinians, inshallah. So where is Sham? Sham is called the Levant, and it contains the graves of some 1,700 prophets. Thousands of Sahaba migrated to Sham. Many of them resided there, participated in various expeditions and battles there, and thousands of their graves are also located across Sham. So it's important for us to note where Sham is and what makes up Sham. So you can see it is Lebanon, Palestine itself, Syria, Jordan, and part of Egypt. So this makes up Sham, and this is the area that has been spoken of by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam quite a lot about what's going to happen in the end days and the importance of Sham. If you have a look at the map of Palestine, just to give some historical, there's some important dates. First one is 1948, because that is when the United Nations decided to partition Palestine. They gave 56% of Palestine to the Jews, and this area here is which area they had given to the Jews, and less than 44% they gave to the Palestinians. This is Gaza, and this is the West Bank. So these were the two main areas that the Palestinians had to move to. So all the Palestinians who were living in what was previously Palestine but was given to Israel had then to move to these two areas. What's also important about this map in the context of what we're going to be discussing later is you can see Gaza is a very small strip of land. It's not more than 42 kilometers in length and not more than 10 kilometers in its widest part. So just to give some idea for us, those of us who live in Durban here in South Africa, 42 kilometers is like from Tonga to Chatsworth. And 10 kilometers will be Durban Central to Westville. So in this small area, there's 2.2 million Palestinians living. Gaza Strip, if you look at Durban itself, the greater Durban area, Gaza Strip is about, the West Bank is about 4 times the size of the greater Durban area. In the West Bank, there's approximately 5 million Palestinians living. So in 1948 was the partition. In 1967, there was a 6-day war. And arising out of the 6-day war, Israel then took occupation of Gaza as well as West Bank. So today, Gaza, West Bank, as well as the Golan Heights here, which was part of Syria before, all falls under the control of Israel. What's also important is this is a Mediterranean Sea, and bordering Jordan, between Jordan and Palestine, what separates them is the Jordan River. So when we hear the phrase from the river to the sea, so it is from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. And why is it called West Bank? Because West Bank is situated on the western bank of the Jordan River. What's also important here to notice is where Jerusalem is situated. So there's West Jerusalem and there's East Jerusalem. And in East Jerusalem, which you can see falls part of West Bank, that is where Masjid Al-Aqsa is located. One further thing, if you are traveling to Palestine, there are two main routes that South Africans take, and I'm sure most other people as well, is via the Tel Aviv airport, and the other is if you come via Jordan through Amman and you enter Palestine. So Jerusalem itself in 1948, when it was divided, so West Jerusalem was given to the Jews and East Jerusalem was given to the Muslims. And in East Jerusalem is the old city, and in the old city is Masjid Al-Aqsa. In 1967, as I mentioned, after the Six-Day War, that is when they took over East Jerusalem as well. So the old city is almost 1 square kilometers in size. This indicated in red, this is the old city. And in white, this is the Masjid Al-Aqsa compound. In the old city, it's made up of 4 quarters. The Muslim quarter, which is the largest. And in the Muslim quarter, you'll see this is Masjid Al-Aqsa. Then you've got the Christian quarter. You've got the Armenian quarter. Armenian are Christians. And then you've got the Jewish quarter. The Jewish quarter wasn't there in 1967, before 1967, but after the 1967 war, they took over the area which was called the Maghribi quarter. That is where, at the time of Salahuddin Ayyubi, the Moroccans, the Tunisians, the Libyans, they all fought on behalf of the Muslims. And in return for that, Salahuddin Ayyubi gave them this area here, which was then called the Maghribi quarter. But after 1967, the whole Maghribi quarter was demolished and it taken over by the Jews. Now, what's very important, we need to know what is Masjid Al-Aqsa. Lots of people just believe that Masjid Al-Aqsa is the Dome of the Rock, but Masjid Al-Aqsa is this entire compound, and it's made up of, as I mentioned, it's made up of 150,000 square meters. So it comprises of the Dome of the Rock. It comprises of the Qibli Masjid. It comprises of the Marwan Musalla, which is an underground masjid. It also includes the Buraq Masjid. So if you're looking at directions, where the Qibli Masjid is, this is the southernmost direction. Where the old Maghribi quarter was, this is in fact the western wall. Now, having just discussed the context of where Palestine is, where Masjid Al-Aqsa is, when we are preparing for our trip, so these are some of the things that we need to bear in mind. If we're traveling to Palestine, and now it's essential for everyone to apply online for a visa before they leave. There is this visa that became compulsory 1st of January 2025. It's very easy to complete, takes you about 5 minutes, and within a very short period of time, they'll give you your response. If they give you a response that the visa is granted, that will be valid for 90 days. It cost 25 shekels. 25 shekels in South African rands is 125 rand, and in dollars it's $7. Conversion, 5 rand makes 1 shekel. And if you want to convert dollars, then 3.6 shekels make $1. However, once you receive this online visa, there's no guarantee that you will get the official visa when you go to the airport. There, the questioning will take place, and thereafter, you could be given the visa, or they could even deny you the visa. So there's two main ways of getting to Masjid Al-Aqsa. One is the airport at Tel Aviv, and the other is via Jordan, the Allenby crossing or the King Hussein Bridge. Now, what we need to know about the crossing at the Allenby crossing is that you will obtain a visa at Amman's Queen Alia International Airport. The visa is free for South Africans. It takes about 40 minutes to get from the airport to Amman itself. And from Amman to the crossing, it takes another 45 minutes by car. When you get to the crossing, there's two terminals. So once you'll have to cross the Jordanian border. Between the Jordanian border and the Israeli border, you'll have to travel by bus, which takes about 10 minutes. And then you'll have to cross the Israeli border. You'll have to pay an amount of 5 Jordanian dinars for the bus trip. Jordanian dinar is very, very strong. So 26 Rand makes 1 dinar. And in dollars, $1.4 equals 1 Jordanian dinar. And I would advise, if you're taking that route, that you just change a little money at the airport. So you'll have the 5 Jordanian dinars for the bus fare. The taxi from the border will then take you to Al-Aqsa, and that's about 50 minutes. And we must bear in mind that the Israeli border is closed on Saturday. So if people are going on a Saturday, it's advisable to just stay a day and then leave on Sunday to cross the border. If you are going via Tel Aviv, flying to the airport, then we will obtain the visa and clear customs at the airport. The visa will be stamped on a piece of paper and not in the passport. The time at customs could vary anything between an hour and many hours. And this is something that we must bear in mind. If you've obtained a new passport and you've applied for your visa, online visa, using your old passport, then when you go to the border, you need to take your old passport and your new passport, because the passport numbers are different. And if you don't take your new and your old passport, they could refuse entry to the person. Free Wi-Fi is available at the airport and probably at the hotels as well. And a taxi that you take from the airport to Masjid Al-Aqsa will take you about 1 hour. And must always bear in mind that you are required to carry your passport and that visa with you all the time, wherever you go. If you don't carry your passport and visa, and if they ask you for the passport and you don't have it, they won't allow you through, whether to Masjid Al-Aqsa, whether to ziyarats and so forth. So what are some of the places to visit? Before we talk about the places to visit in Palestine itself, if you're coming via Jordan, that I would advise that you spend 1 day at least in Jordan, because there's lots of historical sites to visit in Jordan, some of which are the cave of the 7 sleepers, the grave of Bilal radiallahu anhu, the graves of a few of the prophets, Shuaib alayhi salam, Ayyub alayhi salam, Yusha alayhi salam. And then we know about the incident between Khidr alayhi salam and Musa alayhi salam. So it is said that some of those incidents also occurred in Jordan. So that's a place, they take you to a place where they say Khidr alayhi salam also traveled to. And a very, very important battle in Islam was the Battle of Muta. Prophet ﷺ sent the Sahaba in order to conquer Palestine, but this was one of the battles that took place before then. So there's a number of places to visit, and it's advisable to spend at least a day in Jordan. As far as the ziyarats in Masjid Al-Aqsa is concerned, there's ziyarats in Masjid Al-Aqsa and outside Masjid Al-Aqsa. Ziyarat in Masjid Al-Aqsa will probably take you half a day. Ziyarat outside Masjid Al-Aqsa could take anything between 1 to a few days, depending where you're going. So first we'll cover ziyarat outside Masjid Al-Aqsa. One of the places they always take you is Mount Mukabbir. So this is the place where Umar radiallahu anhu 15th AH, when he was asked to come to Palestine and take the key of Palestine, he came to a mountain. And when he came to this mountain, he saw at a distance Masjid Al-Aqsa. So this was his first view of Masjid Al-Aqsa, and he started reading the Takbir. And therefore, the name of this mountain is Jabal Mukabbir. And Umar radiallahu anhu and his servant then walked all the way from the mountain right to Masjid Al-Aqsa. Another place that is famous to visit is the Masjid of Yunus alayhi salam. It's in an ancient city called Al-Hul, and it is north of Hebron. He is not buried there, but that is a place where he stayed for at least 1 year. And what the guide told us was when Yunus alayhi salam was thrown out of the whale's mouth, and this happened by the Mediterranean Sea, he then walked about 60 kilometers, or he traveled 60 kilometers to this place called Al-Hul. And that is where he lived in a cave below this room. And he lived there for 1 year. And when Salahuddin Ayyubi, when he conquered Palestine, then through historical accounts, he realized that this is the place where Yunus alayhi salam spent the 1 year. And this masjid that you see was built by Salahuddin Ayyubi. And now it's been extended. So this is one of the places they will take you normally. Another very important place is the Masjid of Musa alayhi salam. Now the Masjid of Musa alayhi salam, if you're traveling from Amman to Palestine, then en route about 15 minutes from the Allenby border crossing is Musa alayhi salam's masjid. Now you recall this incident where Musa alayhi salam, he had problems with Pharaoh. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then saved Bani Israel, and they went through the Red Sea. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Musa alayhi salam to take his people to Palestine. But his people refused to enter Palestine. They said, there's very strong people, we're not going to go fight there, you can go and fight. But they refused to fight. So when they fight, the Quran Sharif says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then commanded that they will be banished from Palestine for 40 years. So for 40 years, they roamed outside Palestine. And Musa alayhi salam had to go with them. And Musa alayhi salam died whilst he was outside Palestine. So when Musa alayhi salam, when he was on his deathbed, and he told the angel of death, and the old angel of death came to take his life, he actually slapped the angel of death. And he refused to leave. He refused to go with the angel of death. The angel of death then reported it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then asked, why doesn't he want to go? And there was a conversation, and the long and short of it is that he said, okay, if I am going to die in a few years' time, then I want to be buried a stone's throw away from Masjid Al-Aqsa. So historians believe that this place is the place where Musa alayhi salam is buried. This place was built by Salahuddin Ayyubi, and on the first floor, there's guest quarters that were built by the Mamluks. And then there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ reported by Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, that the Prophet ﷺ said that he knows the spot where Musa alayhi salam is buried, and if he is alive, he would even show the Sahaba, and it is below the red sand hill on the side of the road. So at this Musa alayhi salam's masjid, there's this hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and that is, they say it's the grave of Musa alayhi salam, but only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. A very, very important place to visit is Ibrahimi Masjid in Khalili, which is in Hebron. So this is in West Bank. So if you go to Palestine, you are definitely going to go to West Bank. And one of the places that you will have to visit is the Ibrahimi Masjid. There's graves of 3 prophets and their wives. In the masjid itself, on the right-hand side here, is the grave of Ishaq alayhi salam, and on the left-hand side, his wife, Rifqa. Then, towards the back is the grave of Ibrahim alayhi salam, and next to it is the grave of his wife, Sarah. And then it's very interesting what happened here. In the 60s, there was a Jew who entered the masjid. It was Fijr time. He came fully armed and he killed a number of worshippers. In fact, over 60 people were killed. And arising out of that, the Israeli government then closed the Ibrahimi Masjid. When they reopened it, they took 60% of Ibrahimi Masjid and gave it to the Jews. So there's a synagogue there now. And 40% of it was given to the Muslims. Of the place where it is believed that Ibrahim alayhi salam is buried, but he's not buried in the mosque itself. They are buried in a cave under the mosque. So if one looks through this window from the mosque side, one will see there's a window on the opposite side as well. And that is the window that the Jews have from their synagogue. So the synagogue is right next to the masjid. This is the door that separates the synagogue and the masjid. And behind this door is the grave of Yaqub alayhi salam and his wife Leah. And what's very interesting is the sound system of the Ibrahimi Masjid is located in the synagogue area. So every time when it is time for azan, the muazzin, he'll go to this door that you see here. He will then knock the door. A guard will open from the synagogue side and he'll actually give his azan from the synagogue. Another very important thing to notice in Ibrahimi Masjid is Salahuddin Ayyubi's mimbar. Now his uncle was Nuruddin Zanji. He was the mentor of Salahuddin Ayyubi. And while he was also fighting against the Crusaders, he died before the conquest of Palestine. And he then told Salahuddin that if you are alive, when the conquest takes place, I'm going to be building 3 mimbars. The first mimbar I want you to place in Masjid Al-Aqsa. The second mimbar I want you to place in Ibrahimi Masjid. So this is the original mimbar, over 1,000 years old, that was placed by Salahuddin Ayyubi in the Ibrahimi Masjid. And the third mimbar is in the Damascus Masjid. And one of the places they will take you before they take you back to Masjid Al-Aqsa is Mount Olive. And this is the place where you get the best and clearest view of Masjid Al-Aqsa. And below Mount Olive, where the olive trees were, that's now converted to a cemetery by the Jews and Orthodox Jews from throughout the world. They buy plots there costing as much as $100,000 because they believe that when their Messiah, Dajjal, comes, it is from this cemetery that he will walk towards Masjid Al-Aqsa and all those buried in the cemetery will follow him. So that's their belief. So these are the places to visit outside Masjid Al-Aqsa. But what about Masjid Al-Aqsa itself? Masjid Al-Aqsa is such a big compound. It's got 300 structures. And these structures, you've got masjids, you've got domes, you've got wells, you've got fountains, you've got schools. There's about 5 existing schools. There were about 13 at one time. So there's about 300 different structures there. And the structures were built by the different dynasties. So whoever was ruling at the time, he put up a structure and that was his legacy. So there's lots and lots to see in Masjid Al-Aqsa itself in the compound. What I'll do now is I'll take you for a quick virtual tour of Masjid Al-Aqsa. And the first one is we will be walking through the alleyways leading to Masjid Al-Aqsa. This video I took in Ramadan 2023. It was just before the Jummah Salah. Therefore, you'll see the crowds. Generally, it's not as crowded as this. Now, last 10 nights, Jummah, during the during the last 10 nights, it will be as crowded as this. And what's interesting is right next to mosques are churches in the Muslim quarters. Because from the time of Umar radiallahu anhu, right up to now, the relationship between the Muslims and the Christians is very, very good. So you'll see a mosque and you'll see a church. You'll see another mosque and you'll see a church. So this is just the type of crowd that one can expect leading into Masjid Al-Aqsa. This is the video that I took during the current visit. It was after Asr. It was before Ramadan, very, very quiet. And this is now actually entering Masjid Al-Aqsa. And you'll notice the old city was built 3,000 years ago. So you can see there's no roads in the old city at all. And there's cobble roads, you can see. So you're walking on cobblestones. Here's a video. We enter normally from gate number 5. This here on the right is the western wall. This is the western wall of the Masjid Al-Aqsa complex. So we enter from gate number 5. Then there's 4 other gates. And the last gate is the Maghribi gate. And as you are entering, you are constantly looking to your left between the trees because you want to see the Dome of the Rock. And the atmosphere there is something that one cannot explain. Whenever anyone goes into Masjid Al-Aqsa, and no matter how many times you go for Salah, if you are stressed, if you are tired, your stress just disappears. There's so much of peace, so much of tranquility, so much of sukoon when one enters Masjid Al-Aqsa. And why not? Because 124,000 Anbiya all prayed behind Prophet ﷺ from there. That was our first Qibla. That is the place from where the Prophet ﷺ went on Miraj. So the feeling one gets every time one enters the compound is something that one cannot really describe. So as one gets about halfway along this route, then one will be able to get a good view of the Dome of the Rock. And there on the right-hand side are some of the gates. There's various gates, and one of the gates is the ablution gate. So the people who are going for itikaf, one of the gates on the right-hand side here is the ablution gate where you'll be able to make ablution, have a shower, etc. So there's 5 such gates on the western wall side. And then I'll just give you another glimpse of the Qibli Masjid in the Masjid Al-Aqsa complex. So there's about 4 or 5 large doors. This is the central door. On the right-hand side at the rear, you'll notice just now there'll be a partitioned area, and that is where the females perform their salah. When it is very busy, so on Jummahs, Taraweeh time, big nights, they will perform their salah in the Dome of the Rock. The Qibli Masjid can accommodate about 5,000 musallis. The Dome of the Rock, that's also a masjid, and that can accommodate about 3,000 musallis. And then the underground masjid, Masjid Marwan, where the brothers normally do itikaf, that is even bigger. That can accommodate about 7,000 worshippers at one time. And if one continues along this path and go right to the front of the masjid where I'm pointing now, this is where the original mimbar of Salahuddin Ayyubi was. And this is a replica of that mimbar. Again, in the 60s, a Jewish settler, he went into the masjid, he set fire to the masjid. They turned off all the water. Fire brigades were not allowed to enter. For many hours, the masjid burned. And the greatest loss was this entire mimbar of Salahuddin Ayyubi was burnt to smithereens. So this is a replica of it. It was built over 15 years in Jordan. And you notice that in the mimbar, there's these various stones, very, very beautiful. And the unique thing about the mimbar is it's made up of 6,500 pieces. And those pieces are interlocked without using any nail or glue. Remarkable achievement. Another important place that we're going to be visiting in Masjid Al-Aqsa itself is the Musalla Marwan, which is underground Musalla. And what's very, very significant about this place is that this is the place where Maryam alayhi salam had her chamber. And you recall the Quranic verses, Surah Maryam, where Zakaria alayhi salam, when he went to the chamber of Maryam alayhi salam, and he found fruit out of season, and he asked her, where did you get it from? And she said, it is my Allah who has provided it for me. So this is the place where it is stated that she spent most of her life in this chamber, and it is where Musalla Marwan is. This video will give you a better idea of it. And what's also interesting is Zakaria alayhi salam was the uncle of Maryam alayhi salam. Zakaria alayhi salam, his wife also didn't have any children. She was barren and she was very, very old. And Zakaria alayhi salam, when he saw these miracles being performed for Maryam alayhi salam, so he then prayed at his old age for a son. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then gave him a son, Yahya. So where did that dua take place? It is said that in this area that I'm going to be showing you. That just shows the importance of this place. So this is the chamber in that door in the back there. And this is where the brothers will be doing itikaf in the last 10 nights. There's a chamber on the top there. Then another very important place is Dome of the Rock. In Arabic, it's called Qubbat al-Sakhra. It was built by the Umayyad Caliph, Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, in the 7th century. It's one of the wonders of the world. This picture here on the left shows the actual rock. And it is believed that from this rock, Prophet ﷺ went on Miraj. During the time of Salahuddin Ayyubi, he noticed that some of the worshippers were making bid'ah. They were praying from the top of the rock. So you can see around the rock, there is this wooden encasing, and that was done by Salahuddin Ayyubi. Under the rock, there is a cave, and people can go into the cave and make salah there. There is a petition for the females and the males. The architecture, the painting, the design is something out of this world. This is in the Dome of the Rock. Other places of interest, other masajids in the compound is the Masjid of Umar radiallahu anhu. When he freed Masjid Al-Aqsa, at that time, Masjid Al-Aqsa wasn't in existence. It was a dump. The masjid had been demolished. And when he realized, when he found out where exactly the masjid originally stood, and then he built this masjid in 15 AH. It was extended thereafter, and 1,000 worshippers can worship there. And this is under the Qibli Masjid. Another very important masjid, again under the Qibli Masjid, is a masjid that was built by Sulaiman alayhi salam and by the jinn. Now we know in the Quran there is the verse where Sulaiman alayhi salam was building this masjid. The jinns were building it, and Sulaiman alayhi salam was leaning against his stick, and he had passed away, and the ants ate the stick, and when they ate the stick, he fell, and that is when the jinns realized that he had passed away. It's all this in the Quran, so this is where it happened. These pillars, huge pillars, maybe about 4 men, if they get together and hold their arms, that's the size, the width of these pillars, and go about 3 stories high. So these pillars were actually built by the jinn. Then there's 2 other important masajids outside. This one here is called Bab al-Rahma. Now, the Qibli Masjid is on the south of the compound. This is on the north of the compound. In the basement is used as a prayer place. It's called Bab al-Rahma, and it is believed that when Isa alayhi salam, when he descends to Damascus, he will then come to Palestine, he'll come to Masjid Al-Aqsa, and it will be through these doors in Bab al-Rahma that he will enter Masjid Al-Aqsa. And it is also reported that above these 2 domes that you see here, there is a long room, and it was in that long room that Imam Abu Hamid al-Ghazali wrote his famous Ihya Ulum ad-Din. So this is the place where it was written. What's also very important is just outside this Bab al-Rahman masjid is Bab al-Rahma cemetery. Two of the Sahaba who are buried there, famous Sahaba, Shaddad ibn Aus radiallahu anhu and Ubaidah ibn Samit radiallahu anhu, and he served as a judge in Jerusalem after he was sent there by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So their graves, as well as many shuhada grave are there, people who fought at the time of Umar radiallahu anhu and also Salahuddin Ayyubi. So this is a place that it's also very important that we should visit. It's just outside the Golden Gate, which is on the northern end of the compound. And a final masjid also that one could visit, and this again on the western wall, very close to the Qibli Masjid, is the Buraq Masjid. This is close to the wall where the Prophet ﷺ tied the Buraq. A masjid is built, it's underground, and in the masjid there is what you can see here. They say that this is where the Buraq was tied, but no one knows the exact spot. What's also interesting to visit in Masjid Al-Aqsa is the library. There's a library situated right next to Masjid Al-Aqsa, the Qibli Masjid. So if you're facing the Qibli Masjid, if you're facing Qibla, on the right-hand side is this library. And in the old days, this was the prayer place for the ladies. So the ladies' masjid was right next to the Qibli Masjid. And next to it, along the western wall, is, so this is the library, and this is the museum. And it is essential that everyone must visit the museum. There's artifacts going back many, many centuries. Astrolabe, for example, from the Ottoman period. There's number of Quran. This one here is manuscript and storage box of Sultan Murad, 1592. Lots of the domes and the doors, etc., of previous eras from Masjid Al-Aqsa itself are all kept there. And the saddest part of what is kept there, this was the original mimbar of Salahuddin Ayyubi that was burned down in Masjid Al-Aqsa. So this is all that's left of that mimbar, and it is something worth seeing. If one leaves Masjid Al-Aqsa itself, there's a lot more to see, but if one leaves Masjid Al-Aqsa and goes into the old city, a place that one must visit is the Masjid of Umar radiallahu anhu. And we know that when in 15 AH, when Umar radiallahu anhu came to get the key of Palestine, and Sophronius then gave him the key and took him to the Church of Holy Sepulchre. This is the holiest place in Christendom. When they make their pilgrimage in Easter, this is the place they come to, because this is the place where they say that Isa alayhi salam was crucified. So when Umar anhu came to the Church of Holy Sepulchre, he was invited to come and visit it. It was Asr time. He was told by Sophronius to read his Asr Salat there. He refused to read it there. He said, if I read Asr Salat there, then my followers will regard it as a masjid, and this is how fair he was. He then read Salah just in the courtyard, in the open area, about 100 meters away from the main door. And this is where Salahuddin's son built the masjid, and this is the Masjid of Umar radiallahu anhu. It's something worth seeing. It is in the Christian quarters. So from Masjid Al-Aqsa itself is about 10 minutes walk. This is an aerial view of the whole Church of the Holy Sepulchre on the right, and this is Umar radiallahu anhu's masjid. You can see how close it is. And this is the view of the inside of Umar radiallahu anhu's masjid. Okay, now we move on to an important part, especially for those who are going for itikaf. Now you'll be either going for sunnat itikaf or nafil itikaf. If you're going for sunnat itikaf, you'll probably spend the last 10 nights in Masjid Al-Aqsa. If you're going for nafil itikaf, then every time you go into Masjid Al-Aqsa compound, you make the niyat of itikaf and you'll get the sawab. So how should you prepare, especially for those who are going to be living in Masjid Al-Aqsa itself? So this is the Musalla Marwan, the underground Musalla. So these are some of the things that you ought to take: sleeping bag or air mattress, small bag to take into the Masjid. Some people take huge suitcases, and it's not allowed. the guard would stop them at the entrance. They won't allow the suitcases. So it's always advisable, just take a hand luggage with you. If you are going in a group, then your group leader will normally have a room or two in the nearby hotel. And some of the people might not be making sunnat ittikaf. They do nafil ittikaf. So you'll have a runner who will be able to go to the room and get your belongings if you need them. You need to take your toiletries, medication if necessary, take your towels, and essential, you must take a hand towel because when you make wuzu, that is required. It rains quite often this time of the year, so you must take a rain jacket. You have to dress warmly. When we went, and that was about 3 weeks ago, when we landed in Jordan, the temperature was -1, leaving from summer here in Durban. And Palestine itself, it was anything between 2 degrees and about 8 degrees was the lowest temperature. So make sure that you dress warmly, battery pack for phones, snacks, and light snacks are available at the ablution gate. So it's regarded as part of the compound. You can go and buy your refreshments there, and you're still in Masjid Al-Aqsa. Some people take tents. It's not necessary to take tents to be sleeping there in Masjid Al-Aqsa, but it will be cold. You can take your sleeping bags or the air mattress. Some things to remember. Musalla Marwan is closed after Asr to after Taraweeh because the people are not allowed to eat in Musalla Marwan. So iftar will be made in the Qibli Masjid or in the courtyard. The gates of Masjid Al-Aqsa, the compound, are closed by the soldiers, the Israeli soldiers, every day at midnight and reopens at 4 a.m. Qiyam al-Layl is performed during the last 10 nights of Ramadan. It's normally led by the imams of the masjid. Very, very beautiful reading. And the brothers who are spending time in Masjid Al-Aqsa, the Qibli Masjid, lots of them get together and they perform their own Qiyam al-Layl in congregation from about midnight. Beautiful, very, very beautiful reading of the local brothers. If you're performing Nafil Ittikaf, it's advisable to spend the odd nights during the last 10 nights in Masjid Al-Aqsa. The atmosphere is something else. It is something really you have to experience. Here's when they prepare iftar. This is outside in the courtyard. Similarly, there will be dastarkhans laid out in the masjid itself. Okay, so that's about all the visits. Now, what about hotels and food and shopping and culture? Many of us might be interested in these things. So here, the picture that you see, this here is the Damascus Gate, one of the main gates. Most of us will enter the old city through this gate. You can see there's a very busy street in front of it, and opposite it are where the buildings. So just now we were talking about either you can stay in the old city or out of the old city. If you're going to be staying out of the old city, so you'll have to come out of one of these gates, probably Damascus Gate, cross the street, very busy street, and then your hotel could be any distance from opposite the gate. So there are luxury boutique hotels, comfortable family hotels, Airbnb accommodation, hostel type accommodation in the old city. So it meets everyone's budgets. Similar accommodation is also available in other places in the old city. So even in the Christian quarters, if people want, they can even live in the Christian quarters, or you can stay outside the old city. People ask now, should we stay in the old city or outside the old city? There are advantages and disadvantages of both. So the advantages of staying outside the old city, it's less crowded and bigger selection of hotels, and the more luxurious hotels are there. The downside is you'll have to do a lot of walking, depending on how far your hotel is and if it's busy. If it is Jummah time, if it's the last 10 nights, 10 days of Ramadan, very, very busy. So you'll have to leave your hotel, however far it is, cross the busy street, go through the Damascus Gate, which is a bottleneck, and very narrow lanes you'll then have to take to go to Masjid Al-Aqsa amongst hundreds, if not thousands of people, perform your salah, and then you have to go all the way back. Some people had booked outside the old city. However, in the last 10 days, when they realized there's such a big problem, they looked for accommodation in the old city, but they couldn't get. So just be mindful of that. The old city atmosphere, you can't get it outside this old city. But people live both. They would stay both in the old city and outside the old city, depending on the circumstances. Right, some miscellaneous points that we need to cover before we end. Clothing, it is very important that you wear comfortable shoes because you've got lots of walking to do. You're going to be walking on cobblestones. There's no vehicles allowed in the old city. Tackies and boots are very popular with the females. And shoes, hard-soled shoes like boots, hiking footwear is what males normally wear. Take a shoe bag to Masjid Al-Aqsa, small bag for your Quran, for your kitabs, etc. Take warm clothes this time of the year. Dress comfortably. And if you intend spending lots of time in the masjid, then make sure you take your face slot for your wuzu. If you are, we're not going to be making itikaf in the masjid. As far as fitness is concerned, you have to be fit because there's lots of walking, lots of uphill, lots of downhill, because Masjid Al-Aqsa is built on a hill, right? So every trip that you make to the masjid, there's going to be lots of walking and lots of uphill and downhill. So before you go, just make sure that you are fit. Foreign currency, money exchanges are available everywhere. That's not a problem at all. And just inside the gate, few meters inside the Damascus gate, is a money exchanger. There's no problem at all with that. Food, should you take your own food? Families like to take their own food. There's lots of very good food available there in Palestine itself. If you take your own food, if you go to the hotel, hotels normally have facilities, fridges for storage. Many hotels even allow you to use their kitchens for warming your food. Good wholesome food is available everywhere, both the local cuisine as well as the fast food. Food is very reasonably priced, unlike if you go for Umrah. If you go to Masjid Al-Aqsa, if you go to Palestine, a couple, they can have a comfortable meal for anything between 200 to 400 rand. And in dollar terms, it is between $10 to $20, a full meal. Here's examples of the traditional Palestinian cuisine. It's always good to try it out. Very delicious. What about shopping, especially if we take our families with? So there's plenty of shops to do shopping. They cater for all needs, clothing, food, sweets, you name it. And it's very important that we support the local businesses. Because remember, they're going through a very, very hard economic time, especially after the war. Now it is stated that there's, in addition to the zakatable families, there's another at least 200,000 new families are zakatable. Because lots of the Palestinians from the West Bank, they get permit to work in Israel. Now, since the war, the permits have been cancelled. So they've lost their jobs. Many of them are breadwinners. So it's always good. Try and buy as much as possible. Don't go and bargain up there. And there's so many new families that have become zakatable. What to buy? There's lots of local things to buy. Olive oil, spices like za'atar are very popular. Palestinian clothing, Palestinian ornaments, trinkets, scarves. Nablus soap is very, very popular. It's famous in the world. So these are some of the things, but you can buy lots more. Here's some of the shops, clothing shops, olive shops, olive oil, the sweets. Coffee is very popular there. They'll grind the coffee for you to your taste. Sweets, jellies, etc. Almost every 1 in 8 to 1 in 6 shop in the old city sells sweets and jellies. They've got a very sweet tooth. Then you've got alwa shops, etc. You can see the variety of things that are sold there. Passport, very, very important. As I mentioned earlier, you need to carry your passport with you together with the visa. You'll be denied entry or passage if you don't have it with you. Palestinian hospitality is second to none. Wherever the Palestinians see you, they see that you're a foreigner, they'll come up to you, they'll shake your hand, they'll ask you where you're from. If you tell them that you're from a foreign country, they'll hug you, they'll welcome you. Genuinely warm people they are. Quite often they'll invite you to their homes to make iftar. and you'll make lifelong friends there. You really feel like you're at home. And when you go to the Palestinians' home to break your fast, this is some of the food that they'll probably lay out for you. Right, before we conclude, I just want to show you this video. We are very, very fortunate. For us to go to Palestine, it's so easy. Just collect some money, get your passport, buy a ticket, and you fly there. In a few hours' time, you are there. And we can go there as many times as we want. But not so for the Palestinians. Those people who are staying in the West Bank, in order to come to Masjid Al-Aqsa, they need a special permit. To get the permit is very difficult. Many people have lived the entire life in the West Bank. They can see Masjid Al-Aqsa, they can see the Dome of the Rock, but the entire life they haven't read one salat in Masjid Al-Aqsa. Out of the 2.2 million people in Gaza, the majority, if not more than 2 million, have not read one salah in Masjid Al-Aqsa. This is how difficult it is for them. And for us, it is so easy. Here's a video that was taken in 2023. This was one of the odd nights of Ramadan, and the people from West Bank were allowed to enter the masjid. Let's see the immense joy, the unbridled joy and happiness when they enter Masjid Al-Aqsa. And this was at what time? It was at 4:54 a.m. Okay, so what can we do? We'll be taking some questions, and I would prefer it if you write down the questions, and we'll answer a few questions. If you don't have time to answer all the questions, then inshallah, I will communicate with you directly. And those who are online, they could also jot down their questions on the chat. So what are some of the things that we can do? Very, very, very important that we need to make dua for them. And the very pertinent dua to make is Allahumma rzuqna salatan fil Masjid Al-Aqsa wa huwa hurrun azizun. Oh Allah, grant us a prayer in Masjid Al-Aqsa free from occupation. Make any dua. Every time that you sit down to make dua after salah or in tahajjud, whenever, keep a portion of your dua for the Palestinians. Make that must be essential. Secondly, what we need to do is visit Palestine. They want us to visit. Before Ramadan started, there was only about 1.5 saf in Salah, Maghrib time, Asr time, even Isha time. 1.5 saf. Can you imagine? Now you'll get many more. When Ramadan started, Taraweeh time or even normal Salah, you're getting about 5 or 6. No, in fact, about half the masjid was full. So about 2,500 people. And in the ladies section, another 1,000 or so. So they want the people to come in their numbers. And secondly, if we go there, then we need to buy from them and support them in whatever way we can. There's lots more we can do, but time is up. But these are the essential things. So firstly, we need to make dua for them regularly. We need to visit Masjid Al-Aqsa and support them in any way we can. Right, so I'll take some questions, preferably if you can give it to me in writing. Okay, so there's a question here, online question. Is it safe to go with my husband and children? Will we be separated? Will they be separated from my husband at Salah time? It is very safe. It is very safe. At customs, what they normally do is they might call the children aside, question them more than the older people. The older you are, the easier it is for you to get in. They might ask them a few questions, general questions. But once you are in to go to the masjid, they won't separate you. So you go in with your family, you go to the door. If they ask you for your passport, you'll show them the passport. If they don't ask you the passport, you'll just enter like normal. If everyone can read Salah in the main masjid, the ladies will read at the back. If the ladies cannot read there, they will read in the Dome of the Rock, and the children could read either with the parents. So it's not a problem. Is it possible to take a stroller or pram on ziyarat? Yes, it is. People also, wheelchairs is difficult, but you can take a stroller. That's not a problem. Try and avoid taking sweets for the children. Previously, sweets used to be taken and distributed to the children in the masjid. However, now it's become very difficult for us to take sweets into the masjid, and there's reasons for it. Any other questions? Correct. There's two masjid of Hazrat Umar. So the masjid in the basement below the Masjid Qibli, that is the original masjid built by Umar radiallahu anhu. So that is at the conquest of Palestine by Hazrat Umar in 15 AH. A small prayer area. So that is the underground. The other one is in the old city. That is right next to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. So you must go to both places. Any other questions? Qibla direction. So the Qibli Masjid, it is called Qibli Masjid. One of the reasons they say because that's the right direction of the Qibla. Right. So that is south. And they say also called Qibli Masjid because it's the southernmost part of Masjid Al-Aqsa. So you're facing south, and that's the direction of the Qibla. The Dome of the Rock is behind you. That's about 200 meters away from the entrance of the Qibli Masjid. Any other questions? Yes.
Each one has different salah.
No. So
situated anywhere, but
okay, so that is correct. There's a number of masajids in Masjid Al-Aqsa compound itself. So everyone will perform salah in the Qibli Masjid. That Burat Masjid, no one will perform salah there during salah time, but you can perform other salah, the nafil salat, etc. The masjid right in the back, Bab al-Rahma. So if people are performing salah there, the mic is connected to the Qibli Masjid. But they're having issues there at the moment. They're being prevented from performing salah there and so forth. But generally, you'll perform in the main masjid. And when the men perform in the main masjid, the Qibli Masjid, the ladies will perform in the Dome of the Rock. Okay, so customs depending on the person who is at the custom. And we had no problem. Recently, this whole group went from South Africa just yesterday and didn't have a problem. So inshallah, there shouldn't be a problem. No, you don't have to go via agency. See, the reason why we like to go with people who have been there before or with agents is because the fear around going to Masjid Al-Aqsa. So the first time I went with a travel agent. The second time I went on my own. And the second time that I went, then few other people who were going, that was their first trip. So they met me at the airport and then they just tagged along with me because I was there already. This time when I went with my wife, but I went alone. So if you're going the first time, it's advisable to go with someone who has been there before, not necessarily with a travel agent. But if you go with a travel agent the first time, it's fine. But once you get to know it, then it's very easy. Yeah, so if you go on your own, then you'll have to arrange your own transport from the airport, especially if you're going via Jordan. Then you have to arrange your own transport. So if you go via an agent, they will arrange all the transfers. So it makes life easier. But even if you go alone, And if you get off at Tel Aviv airport, you can take a taxi from there to Masjid Al-Aqsa. There's plenty of taxis, there's even buses, there's even trams that take you there. There's no problem. And there's a signpost everywhere. Okay, the more convenient way between going via Jordan and going via Tel Aviv, I found is directly via Tel Aviv. Because if we have to travel from South Africa, whichever, the airlines that we normally use, the very popular and very economical are Ethiopian airlines that go via Addis Ababa or Egypt Airline, right? There are other airlines as well, but these are the popular airlines. The others are more expensive. So it is always easy if you can travel directly to Tel Aviv, just do customs there, and then you are in Masjid Al-Aqsa in 45 minutes time. And even on the return, now if you go via Jordan, the problem is, firstly, you're going to get off at the airport. Then you have to take transport to get to Amman if you're going to be staying over in Amman. Then from Amman, you have to take transport to get to the Jordanian border. And then you have to clear customs at the Jordanian border. You have to wait until the bus is full. Then you can move from the Jordanian border to the Israeli border. And that could take an hour or more. And then at the Israeli border, you have to go through customs again. And then from the Israeli border again to Masjid Al-Aqsa is about another 45 minutes. So I would not recommend taking the Jordan route. But now this time of the year, what we found that it is more economical to buy a ticket if you go from South Africa, if you go via Jordan and return via Tel Aviv. If we went directly Tel Aviv and back to South Africa, the ticket would have been about 30 to 40% more. Because what's happening, there's very few airlines, international airlines flying to Israel. With the result, the few that are flying have to pay so much more on insurance, and they're passing it on to the public. So that is why we had to go via Jordan, but we don't regret it because we were able to see things we would not normally have seen. Yeah. So you can stay one extra day. Yes, so then you go to Jordan, Amman, and then from there you spend a day, and then you go to the border. Yes. And then you'll go by road, you go to the border, and by road from the border to Masjid Al-Aqsa. And then lots of people go for the 3 harams, starting off in Masjid Al-Aqsa. So then they will normally go via Jordan, and then the return is also via Jordan. Plenty, there's lots and lots of people who we met now. They were going for the 3 harams, and they were starting off from Masjid Al-Aqsa, as per the advice of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Okay, so there's a good question. If you're going the first time, how much time must you spend in Masjid Al-Aqsa to get the most benefit? I would think if you spend about a week, it is sufficient. There's enough time. Yeah, there's enough time. Like this is out of Ramadan, right? Unless you go for the last 10 nights. So out of Ramadan or during Ramadan, if you're going for the first time, if you spend about a week, we went for 8 days, right? So you've got enough time to make ibadat, enough time to do ziyarat, etc. Right? More than that might be too much, unless you've got the time and you've got less than that. Some people, they go for 2 or 3 days there and then a few days in Makkah, a few days Medina. If you are happy with that type of hectic life, it's good. But if you're not happy with hectic traveling, then that's not advisable, 2 days. But even people have been going now for 4 or 5 days, and then 4 or 5 days in Makkah, 4 or 5 days in Medina, in order to do the 3 harams, that's fine. But to answer your question, first time, if you want to spend time, about a week is sufficient. Yes. In Masjid Al-Aqsa, you wear your ihram, and then from there you go to Makkah and Medina. Okay, so normally they take in dollars. How much must you budget for ziyarat? Again, depends whether you're going in a group or you're going individually with the guide. If you're going in a group, then they will divide the amount. But I think you need to take at least 1,500 rand per person for the external ziyarat. Because normally you get a guide, he will have to hire a bus, and normally an entire day. Internal, it could be about 1,000 rand per person. But they spend quality time with you, and the information they give you, you'll never get anywhere else. Whole day outside Masjid Al-Aqsa, and in Masjid Al-Aqsa, about half-day tour is sufficient. Yeah, so there are plenty of English-speaking guides in Masjid Al-Aqsa. So you just ask one of the travel agents, ask someone who has been there before, and he'll give you the contact details. Very, very competent, very well-spoken English, and very good command of Quran Sharif. So when they quote in the Quranic verses, and because they speak Arabic, it is like a Maulana is speaking to you. Okay, I think we need to. Okay, we'll just take 2 more questions and then we'll stop. Let me have a look. Okay, so availability of cash or credit card. You can take your credit card. It works there. Just make sure that you clear it with your bank, that you can use the credit card overseas. What's the second question? Multiple?
The masjid within the Masjid Al-Aqsa boundary. Are they multiple tarawis or one tarawih?
No, there's only one tarawih taking place in the Masjid Al-Aqsa compound, and that is in the main masjid. So I think time is up. If there's other questions, inshallah, I can respond to it individually. You can speak to me, the brothers who are here, you can speak to me, and those who are at home or overseas, they can just send the questions. We thank Brother Zaid of Al-Burhaan Institute for making it possible for us to have this presentation here today. They did all the organizing, and the facilities are excellent, and he spent all his time here, as well as his father and Mufti Saab as well. Right, Jazakallah khair, subhanallah bihamdi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.